Good evening and welcome to the Township of South Orange Village Planning Board regular meeting for the evening of Monday, March 2nd, 2015. Jetta, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Colton-Max.
Here.
Mr. Lerner.
Here.
Mr. Rosner.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Torpe.
Here.
Reverend Wilson.
Present.
Mr. Chambers.
Here.
And Ms. Harris.
Here.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, PL 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2015 to the South Orange Maplewood News Record and the Star Ledger in December 2014, and by filing said notice in the office of the village clerk. We have a number of items on our agenda this evening, and I know many of you in the audience tonight are here for perhaps one particular item. We want to get to that first, but there's apparently been a change in plans. So we are going to invite up the village administrator, Barry Lewis, to talk about ordinance number 2015-02, an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of South Orange Village, sections 92-200.3, 92-200.5, and Schedule 1 of Chapter 92, permitted principal uses for the PRC-B District Planned Residential Cluster B. Barry?
Thank you, Chairman. Again, Barry Lewis, Village Administrator, and here to bring you an update on the ordinance 2015-02. As you know, that was an ordinance that was initially introduced by the Board of Trustees and has been referred to this board. In the intervening period since that... So you mean it's not amplified, or?
That's better.
Okay, I'll try and lean in. That ordinance was introduced by the Board of Trustees, referred to the Planning Board. In the intervening period, among others, your professionals and specifically your planner did prepare a report. I've had conversations with her. We reviewed the ordinance. Certain concerns were raised concerning a lack of clarity and in terms of the ordinance. That was an ordinance that was intended to clarify existing zoning on the Orange Lawn parcel, which currently had two different permitted uses, the first being the existing use of recreation and the other being the PRCB zoning. In reviewing Ms. Gruel's comments, some concerns I had, discussing them with Village Council, among other things, there's a belief that there's some provisions that need to be clarified, and that better to do that first before we continue and move forward and then come back again. There has also been a number of concerns raised, I think, publicly, privately, other issues brought to light that has caused the Board of Trustees to feel like better to revisit this ordinance to get those sort of legal clarifications put in the new ordinance. Perhaps if there are some of the concerns that have been raised, I can't speak for the Board of Trustees, but the bottom line is, and certainly we are understanding and extend our apologies for the inconvenience to anybody who came out tonight who may have wished to speak to this ordinance. But again, I think the sense is better to do it right the one time than to proceed when we have already identified certain concerns that we think need to be addressed, and other concerns that may wish to be addressed by the Board of Trustees. So at this point, the board would withdraw that ordinance. So at that point, it's not for the Planning Board to review that for master plan consistency. Again, we also apologize to the board for any time you spent reviewing that ordinance, because there will be a replacement ordinance, and I think most of any background that you've done would be applicable to that one as well, as far as bring yourselves up to speed on the history and the provisions in the master plan relating to the zoning of that particular parcel. But so at this point, what I would say, and certainly to the public, is the expectation is that the Board of Trustees, with input from the planner, from legal counsel, will be revisiting it, introducing a new ordinance. The next Board of Trustees meeting is a week from tonight. That would certainly obviously be the first potential opportunity. Whether it would be in a position to do so at that point remains to be seen. Obviously, that will be listed on the Board of Trustees agendas, which are all published on the website the Friday prior to a meeting. We will do everything to make sure we get the word out on the website and any other platforms that we have as to when a new ordinance may be introduced. Again, as with any land use ordinance, if a new ordinance is introduced, then certainly everybody within 200 feet of the property would again have to get certified mail notice. It would be published in the newspaper. It would again be referred to the planning board for your review, and then ultimately would then go back for a public hearing at which people could also appear before the Board of Trustees. So again, we do apologize for any confusion, any inconvenience to people, but the belief is that it's better to do it right the first time than kind of proceed down this path and then have to backtrack.
So this ordinance is being withdrawn,
That's correct.
and therefore there is nothing for us to discuss this evening as it relates to this ordinance.
Correct. The planning board is on a referral of an ordinance. Obviously, your duty is to review it for consistency with the master plan, and as there is currently no ordinance, then there's no review to be conducted this evening.
Okay. Is that adequate for our purposes?
Yes, I understand. It's been withdrawn, there's nothing here referred to us, so there will be no discussion from the board for it, and then as a result of that, there will be no public comment because the board is not discussing it.
Okay.
There's nothing here to discuss.
Okay. So, thank you. There is, unfortunately, comments from the audience at a minimum would not be heard by anybody who is watching the meeting. There is in the agenda for the planning board, as has been our standard practice, we do not have a public comment section to our meetings. We have never, or I can't say have never had it, but certainly have not had it in the time that I've been here, nor do we have it on our agenda for this evening.
General public comment.
For general public comment, obviously there can be public comment on specific agenda items when they come up, but this is no longer an agenda item, so therefore there is no. I'll repeat what you're saying, but nobody else would be able to hear it. The answer is that the planning board is only able to hear those items which are on our agenda. If they are not on our agenda, we cannot hear them. We do not have a public comment section. This was something we planned to do. It was only in the last few hours that it was brought to our attention that the item was to be withdrawn. If it was possible to have given prior notice, we would have tried to do so. But unfortunately, we only learned about this afternoon. And
Sure. The planning board is a statutory body, and it only addresses the matters that are before it. Mr. Lewis has advised us that the Board of Trustees has withdrawn this ordinance. We have nothing to review. So the board will not be commenting on something because it's been taken away from them. Eventually, as Mr. Lewis said, if ordinance is reintroduced, it'll be referred again to the planning board, and that's what the planning board will discuss, and then the public will be invited to comment upon the discussions that are had by the planning board. There's nothing here to review. It's gone. They've taken it away. There's no procedure for that. The planning board is a statutory body. It has to act according to statute, and it does not hear advisory opinions on matters that are not before it. There's not a statute that says we can't do it. There's statutes that say what we can do, and the statute that says what we can do does not give the planning board the opportunity to just discuss things that are not before it, and they've taken
Okay. So there will be the opportunity when there is another ordinance introduced to speak at both the Board of Trustees and at the Planning Board if such an ordinance is to be brought back here. Until such time, there is no ordinance for us to comment on, and we will need to move on to other business. So next item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from the regular meeting held on Monday, January 5th, 2015.
I want to give a few minutes to leave.
Can I answer one question?
Just, yeah. Answer.
Your question is, will it come back to the board, to the planning board? If the town trustees pass a new ordinance on first reading, it will then again be referred to the planning board for review and comment, and the planning board will then schedule a hearing on it.
No, this board would consider it if they repass an ordinance. The board is statutorily required to consider it. So if the trustees pass another ordinance, it will be here.
If they don't pass an ordinance, there is nothing for us to review. If they pass an ordinance, they have to give us the opportunity to comment on it. So they have to, by law. By law, they must, any ordinance of this sort must be brought to the planning board for its input. We have a period of 35 days, I think, 45 days to have an opportunity to comment on it. And in that case, actually, the Board of Trustees extended the period of time in order so that the planning board could consider this when we had to cancel our meeting at the beginning of February, because we're already outside of the 45-day period. So they did give us that opportunity. So even though statutorily they were not required to do so. So they did refer it to us, and if they introduce another ordinance, they will have to do that. That's state statute.
Can I?
The decision was made, I guess, ultimately late this afternoon, and I apologize for the inconvenience.
Harold, do you mind?
Go ahead, Alex.
So just quickly, there's just one thing I just want to add here, in addition to what the chairman said. Unfortunately, all of us, not only on the planning board, but in other boards like the Board of Trustees as well, we have to operate within legal frameworks that set what we do in a way that doesn't necessarily always make the most sense to us either, but it is what we're required to do. And the reason why we can't get into a back and forth is there's a lot of people at home watching this that can't hear anything that's been said by any audience members, which is not fair to people who aren't able to make it out of the house and able to make it to one of these meetings. So the most fair way to make sure that people at home can hear the public comment is to make sure that we do it through that process. One thing I will say, and I can't speak to the processes that the planning board is required to follow, but in our Board of Trustees, you have multiple opportunities to voice public comment. One would be, like what the chairman said, at the next planning board meeting, which, like he also said, is 100% required to happen before anything happens here and this moves forward. The other is you can come to any Board of Trustees meeting if you'd like to. Those are every second and fourth Monday at 8 p.m. We do have general public comment periods during those meetings as well. Again, it's not a particularly interactive format. We can't get into a back and forth discussion, but you can come and read a statement if you'd like to. On top of that, if there is any resident who is interested in voicing a concern and having a more conversation interactive format about it. I know myself, Trustee Rosner, any member of the Board of Trustees would be happy to sit down with people as well. So there are multiple ways you can email us your comments. I know we've gotten a bunch of them already. You can let us know if you'd like to sit down with us and talk to us. There are other avenues to have discussions as well, but unfortunately we have to kind of wiggle around the legal frameworks that set the way these meetings operate, which we don't actually set ourselves, but are set by the state. So again, just to echo what the chairman said, this would come back here. There's also the opportunity at the Board of Trustees meetings, regardless of what's on the agenda. Any member of the public can come to any Board of Trustee meeting at 8 p.m. Is when the meetings start, and there is a public comment period where you can voice a statement. But again, just a disclaimer, that's not super interactive either. It's basically reading a statement, and after all the statements are done, we can do our best to try and address it and let you know what the next steps are. And then on top of that, if there are any people that are interested in having a conversation, asking questions about it, I think I'm certainly available, atorpey@southorange.org. I think other members of the board would be happy to do so as well. So hopefully there is some way to get your concerns addressed, make sure that your voice is heard. You can email us your comments. I think that sort of covers all the available bases. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that there were other avenues as well, and that as frustrating as this is to not have notice for this not being on the agenda tonight, which Mr. Lewis and I know the chairman and myself, we all apologize for. There are other opportunities for it, and hopefully this won't happen again, and we can hear your feedback and not waste anybody's time.
All right, they just cut them off.
Well, I don't know. The question was assuring a member of the public if we're not kicking the can down the road. Like what Mr. Lewis said, there are some aspects of the ordinance that are unclear from a legal perspective. Certainly passing an ordinance that has unclear legal, right, that is not a good idea. I'm not a lawyer, but I certainly know that much. Mr. Lewis is a lawyer and also knows that much. And so I don't know if there's anything more specific that you felt to be in a position to be able to speak to tonight about what needed to be fixed. But it's certainly not kicking the can down the road. It's certainly, certain things came up today, realized that this was not clear. We should not be moving forward with an ordinance that has anything that could be misinterpreted or there be a gray area at all. And that was really the basis of the decision.
Well, I don't want to necessarily definitively say that I'm going to state every concern because some of them are being reviewed as we speak. There were concerns about the verbiage and the way the absence of a clear indication of where the line is drawn in terms of the different uses on the property. I know that was one of the concerns that certainly I had, as well as the planner had referenced in her memo. Clarification, there's references in there to certain things referring to the tract that I think we need clarification. I don't have it right in front of me. But those, specifically in terms of where, if you were going to have both uses on the parcel, as worded, I think there's a concern that it's not clear that a definitive line is drawn in terms of where the two different uses would exist and what regulations would apply to each use. Is that fair, Susan? Again, and not discounting that there may be other issues that are being reviewed, but those are the ones that I'm, immediately familiar with.
And we're terribly sorry. This is an unfortunate turn of events. The planning board was prepared to discuss this matter and offer its opinion on the matter as required by law, but unfortunately, it was only at the very last minute, late in the day, that we were informed, and we have to, respond and deal with that accordingly. So I do recognize, just as we are all volunteers who take time to come here and prepare for these meetings, that you did something similar. So we, I guess hopefully we'll end up with something that is as good as it can be, and there won't be any errors in it, and hopefully we'll address or deal with everybody's concerns. But, having said that, there really isn't anything more we can do tonight. This is not the time or the place, and I wish I could have called any one of you, or we could have called any one of you personally to let you know, but unfortunately, here we are. So you have, even though I didn't cause the problem, as chair of the planning board, you have my apologies.
Let's just move on. Yeah, move on quickly.
So,
But give Pat a chance to get up
okay,
here.
so our legal counsel, Patrick Dwyer, we would like to call you up now so that you can take your proper role here, having been, you're not able to hear this ordinance, but you are now able to hear the rest of the matters before this board. So Patrick, if you could join us, please. And thank you, Alice, for coming tonight.
Okay, no problem. Maybe I'll see you again. What happened to Pat?
Where is he?
night.
Well, I'd like us to adopt the minutes, if that's okay. Can we adopt the minutes?
Oh, you're going to go that way. Okay.
Next time you'll email me next time.
Yes. I'll email you often.
So we're going to hear about the Kingsman tonight?
Okay, so now moving ahead with the agenda, the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held Monday, January 5th, 2015. Is there anybody who has any comments or thoughts to share on this? If not, I'll be happy to accept a motion to accept.
Move to accept.
Second?
Okay. How about we just do this simply? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstentions?
Here, one abstention.
One abstention. Okay. So the motion passes. Before we move on, I actually want to find out, and I am trying to be mindful of who is here and what they're here for. How many of you who are here regarding the case number 231? Okay, really, okay. The 14 Kingman Road, in case that wasn't clear? Okay. How many of you are here relating to the resolution considering the village as an area in need of rehabilitation? Okay. All right. So we're gonna take care of the area in need of rehab first, because that should be fairly quick, and then we'll move on from there to the case and continue forward from there. In particular, we're going to be discussing resolution number 2015-42, proposed resolution designated the entire village as an area in need of rehabilitation. And I understand, Mr. Lewis, you're here to provide us with some thoughts on that.
I am, and thank you, Chairman. That was my original purpose to be on your agenda this evening, and I got involved in the first one. Before you, there is a resolution which has been adopted by the Board of Trustees proposing, and attached to it is, the resolution is referring a proposed resolution to the Planning Board, which is pursuant to procedure spelled out in the local redevelopment and housing law. That law largely covers redevelopment, with which the Board is familiar, because certainly you've been involved in redevelopment plans and redevelopment designations. There's another provision in there relating to rehabilitation, specifically 4812A-14, which to my knowledge has not really ever been done in the village, so it's probably kind of a first impression for this board. Basically, that is something lesser than redevelopment. The distinctions are it does not contemplate or allow under any circumstance the use of eminent domain. So consequently, a lot of the law and case law involving blight is not applicable. The criteria are different. What it is, though, is a different tool with perhaps not as much reach, intended to help spur redevelopment, rehabilitation, et cetera. There are certain criteria specified in there that, if met, and if the governing body finds that they believe that it meets the criteria, it is referred to the Planning Board for comment, goes back to the Board of Governing Body, in this case, the Board of Trustees, who could adopt the resolution. The effect of and is specifically contemplated that you can do it on a town-wide basis. In fact, a number of the criteria are specifically town-wide, relating to the age of the housing stock in the town, the age of the infrastructure. Assuming that is done and the designation applies, that in and of itself doesn't really authorize or do anything. What it does authorize you to do is to adopt redevelopment plans. They do call them redevelopment plans, even though it's rehabilitation, for specific parcels or areas or properties or projects. Not unlike the redevelopment plans that we do in the redevelopment zones, that does allow you to kind of custom tailor a particular project, the restrictions, the size, the density, the architecture, and it does allow short-term tax abatement. Unlike long-term tax abatement under redevelopment, however, short-term tax abatement is limited to 5 years, and it's just a graduated payment of actual real property taxes. So I know it's of interest to some people, and it's particularly gaining steam in the discussion. In these cases, It's a graduated payment, 20, 40, 60, 80% of the property taxes, which is then goes to all the three different entities, the county, the Board of Ed, and the town. So it's not like a pilot where the Board of Ed is not getting money. Everybody just gets theirs on a kind of a graduated basis to provide some economic incentive to allow a project to take place. So we believe it is a good tool, and particularly with some of the increased scrutiny in the case law involving redevelopments and redevelopment criteria, this gives us an opportunity. We are envisioning the potential uses for it to be in the Irvington Avenue corridor, extending down Valley, some of the other commercial corridors that are not currently within the redevelopment zone. So that's basically the background. Unfortunately, and certainly either your counsel or Mrs. Gruhl could perhaps weigh in on it, while the statute says refer to the planning board for comment, it doesn't particularly tell you what to comment on. Unlike a land use ordinance where you're specifically referring to the master plan, it doesn't really say what the scope of your comments are, but if Mr. Dwyer knows more, he can certainly inform you. But that's basically the background. I'm certainly, you can discuss it. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
I'm sorry, Susan, did you want to, since he referenced your thoughts on this?
This is really a technical advancement, I'll say, of what this board already did discuss and hear before, based upon our August 19th, 2014 report that this board had, and in the fall went over it, and we had discussions. So this is really a recap with a supplement from Sal regarding the age and condition of the infrastructure, which is of both water and sewer, which is another criterion under the rehab statute.
Okay, thank you. Sal, was there anything you want to add? Okay. Questions from the members of the board? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, please.
The ordinance that was sent to us for review, there's words missing right after on the second page. There's a whole series of words missing that was left blank.
The one that's a deliberate blank?
Yeah.
Okay, the second page is the proposed ordinance, and at least the one section that specifically has a blank is to fill in what comments the planning board may have. Is that the part you're talking about?
Yeah. What?
It specifically says, and the planning board reported back, so obviously I did not knowing what you may or may not comment. We have to fill that blank in after this takes place.
I just have a number of questions. I know it excludes roads, but it covers the entire water infrastructure on water and sewer. Is that indicating that we're going to replace or repair?
No, and this doesn't in any way reflect or relate to activities that may occur on the water and sewer. One of the criteria underneath 12A14 that would prove eligibility for designation is that the majority of the water and sewer infrastructure is in excess of 50 years old and in need of substantial repair. What I assume, and I didn't write the statute, is those are the type of indicia that the legislature, I believe, are supportive of a belief that a town is aging and may need, but again, the impact of this and any redevelopment plans that may be pursued after designation relate to activities on private property, development properties. Again, those plans, as within a redevelopment zone, those plans would come to the planning board for review and comment. But no, this is not in any way relating to the actual infrastructure and what we're going to do. I think we all know and recognize, and we're have been committing resources and developing our plans that our water and sewer needs help. The water obviously has been out of our hands for 20 years, but we'll be reclaiming it shortly, and we'll address it. But this doesn't have the effect of indicating anything will or won't be done on the infrastructure.
But it does have an economic effect if you're going to use tax abatement for a 5-year period or a 4-year period.
Well, there's no question it has an economic effect. I think that to the extent the ability to do this spurs redevelopment and rehabilitation that would not otherwise occurred. It has a positive economic benefit, albeit phased in over 5 years. So if you didn't do it and they did nothing, then you wouldn't get any new taxes. Right. If this incentivizes some development, you will get new taxes. It's just gradually introduced 20, 40, 60, 80, and the belief is that that's needed to incentivize them.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Okay, seeing none. Pat, do you want to just explain, as Barry alluded to, what is the specific action that this board can take or not take?
Well, it's not like an ordinance review, as Barry just said, where you try to compare for consistency with the master plan, because the designation all by itself is
pull it closer to you.
Is merely a designation. It's not an indication of any change of any other than what could happen in the future with future applications or future development in the areas. So it's like a potential for other things to happen. It's a designation of an area that it does need rehabilitation so that things can happen in the future, and there are some benefits to it, as you mentioned, slight tax abatements which allow it to happen.
What action can this board take? We've read the materials, we've heard the presentation, we've heard from our planner, answered questions. Now the question is, what action do we take? Do we say, for example, that we agree with the planner's recommendation that the township should be named an area in need of rehabilitation?
Yes, and that if there are any additional specific comments that you think ought to be made about how that resolution would read, it should be included so that the governing body knows about it. But essentially, that's it.
Okay. So does anybody want to take a crack at making a motion? Well, I guess I'll step into the breach. That I'm just basically going to repeat what I said a moment ago. That I want to introduce a motion that the planning board would recommend or agree that the planner's recommendation that the township be named an area in need of rehabilitation, that we are in agreement with that recommendation, and the board of trustees should proceed accordingly. That would require a second.
Second.
Okay. Jenna, you want to take the roll?
Hey, Mr. Lerner,
Yes.
Mr. Rosner,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Torpe,
Yes.
Reverend Wilson, Mr. Chambers,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
and Mr. Coltemax.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda, application to be heard, case number 231, Luther P. Turner Jr. and Hazel A. Turner, Block 704, Lot 1, 14 Kingman Road, minor subdivision. Applicant is proposing to subdivide the existing lot to create 2 lots with the intent to construct a one-family dwelling on the new lot. Do we have representation for the applicant?
Good evening. Good evening. Lisa Hendricks Richardson, attorney from the law office of Lisa Hendricks Richardson, representing the applicant Hazel and Luther Turner.
I'm sorry, may I have your name again?
Lisa Hendricks Richardson.
Okay, counsel, if you'd like to take us through how you plan to proceed, any witnesses you might have, so we can move forward.
Certainly. Good evening, Commissioners. This is an application presented by Luther and Hazel Turner to subdivide their existing lot into 2 lots with the intent of constructing a one-family dwelling on the new lot 1.02. Procedurally rather, this application for the minor subdivision was filed in or about July 2013. The application was deemed complete September 4th, 2013. As a result of the comments from the planner's review, my client was advised that she had to go before the Historic Preservation Commission That occurred November 18th, December of 2013, December 16, 2013, and January 28th, 2014, the matter having been decided on January 28th. The application was denied approval for application for a certificate of appropriateness to subdivide property. My client appealed the Historic Preservation Commission decision before the Board of Adjustment on Monday, August 5th, 2014, and our appeal was granted on procedural grounds as it related to the Historic Preservation Commission denying the request. Subsequently, we resubmitted the application, which is substantially the same one that was submitted in July of 2013. However, we did append to that application a site plan because so much concern was indicated by the Historic Preservation Commission and the Zoning Board in their deliberations of the appeal as to what the proposed dwelling would look like. Tonight, I do have our expert witnesses, our surveyor and architect, to give testimony concerning this application for a minor subdivision, as well as the applicant. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to be, what's the order you're going to be calling the witnesses in?
The surveyor, the architect, and the applicant.
Okay. And just for the edification of the members of the public who are here for this case, essentially what will happen is that each of these witnesses will be brought up. We will be asked, when they are done presenting their testimony and questioning from counsel, it will then be an opportunity for our professionals to ask questions. Additionally, then members of this board will have the opportunity to ask questions. When that is done, members of the public will be invited to ask questions of the witnesses on the testimony that they have provided. They will be asked to come or speak at the one of the microphones so that people at home can hear them. And that will be done for each of the witnesses. When that is complete, there will then be an opportunity for public comment on this particular case. So it doesn't have to be a question or relate to any testimony specifically given, but has to relate directly to this case. After that, the public comment will be closed, and the board will take the matter under advisement if the case, that's the whole process, assuming we get through all of it tonight, and we would then render a decision. So that is the process we're going to be using going forward, and with that, we will ask you to call your first witness.
Mr. Surveyor, Zach? Do you need this easel in front of you?
If you could just please continue to use the microphone if you're...
Do you need the easel in front of the commissioners? Where do you want us to place out?
You can leave it there so that members of the public can hopefully see it as well. If we need to see it closer, we'll probably ask you to pass it around. There's no perfect placement for it anywhere, unfortunately.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you give to this board is the whole truth? And I show the board.
Hello?
Yes, right? You do, right?
I do.
Okay. Could you please give us your name and spell your last name and your first name?
It's Zdravko Lucin, Lucin.
And the first name is?
Zach for short, let's call it. That's Zdravko.
And your address?
20 Lombard Drive, West Caldwell.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lucin, are you licensed surveyor in New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
And what is your related educational background?
I'm a graduate of NJIT in 1983. I received my license in the state of New Jersey as a land surveyor in 1991. I've been doing in the land surveying business for over 35 years.
Have you ever appeared before this or any other municipal land use boards?
I have not appeared in front of this board, however, I did appear in a couple of other municipalities.
I'd like the commissioners to accept this expert witness.
Any objections? So, we accept.
Okay, can you briefly describe the proposed minor subdivision, including the variances being sought?
Yes, the applicant wants to subdivide an existing lot, approximately 32,000 square feet, into two lots, one being approximately 19,000 square feet, the other being 13,000 square feet approximately, the corner of Kingman Road and South Orange Avenue. The applicant is seeking two variances due to the lot width. With the zone A75 residential requires a 140-foot width. However, both of those lots would be insufficient, and therefore the applicant is seeking a variance as to those two lot widths.
Thank you. Have you had the opportunity to review the planner's minor subdivision review comments dated February 17, 2015?
Yes, I did.
Any concerns with any of her comments?
Her comments as to a couple issues, as to the driveways fronting on South Orange Avenue. I did inspect the area east and west of the site. I did find that there are, I would say, at least four dwellings to the west which have a driveway exiting on South Orange Avenue, and two to the east of the property. Therefore, the new lot, which obviously is an interior lot, will also have a driveway exiting onto South Orange Avenue. I do not see a concern as to the proposed driveway exiting on South Orange Avenue.
Okay, I'm going to refer you to the location map on your minor subdivision.
You need to continue to keep the microphone.
Sorry.
I think you can take it out of there.
I'm going to refer you to your location map on the minor subdivision. Is this the minor subdivision map?
Yes.
Is it safe to...
Can you identify the map for us?
It's titled minor subdivision. You have three maps. One is the minor subdivision, one is the boundary, the 200-foot radius map, and the other was the boundary and topographic survey.
Are those exactly the same as the ones that were submitted to the planning board?
Yes, it is. This is the same survey submitted. So you should have it in your package.
And which one are we looking at specifically?
At the minor subdivision map, which indicates the existing lots and the proposed subdivision. If you look at the right-hand corner, it'll tell you which title of the maps they are.
Thank you.
Is it safe to say that there are other lots in proximity to the property which are comparable or in fact smaller than the proposed new lots?
Yes.
Can you identify any of those?
Yes, by inspection, in the same block, 704, lot 1401, and lot 6 are similar to the proposed new lots for the applicant. Also, in block 701, by inspection, there are, I would guess, perhaps four lots which are similar in size to the proposed new lots. And in fact, they all have a width less than the 140 feet required by the zone.
Thank you. Okay, I have no further questions of this witness at this time. Open it up to the commissioners.
Susan
And/or
or Sal,
professionals.
do you have any comments or questions for this? No? Susan? No? Okay, opening up to members of the board. Michael?
Yeah, you are aware, because your plan doesn't show it, that the driveway from Kingman to South Orange is closed?
Yes.
The cut, you are aware of that?
Yes.
Other questions? Lillian?
Yes, I just wanted to know on lot 1401, is there a single-family home there? What's
No,
on that
the lot is vacant presently.
It's vacant? Okay, thank you.
Other questions from members of the board? Hearing none. Any member of the public who wishes to ask questions of this witness?
There's my notes.
Yes, please. Please use the microphone here. Please, if you could identify yourself, your name, and your address, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremiah O'Leary, 18 Kingman Road, South Orange, New Jersey. My property is, not surprisingly, located right next to 14 Kingman Road. I have a few questions for, is it Mr. Lucen?
Yes.
Sir, you testified earlier that there are two width variances at issue here. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I think you said that the A75 district within which this property is located has a 140-foot requirement under the
Yeah.
2008 statute. Is that right?
Yes.
What is the width, if you know, sir, of the proposed lot?
There'll be two, the proposed new lot. is
Correct, the proposed new lot.
80 feet in the front, and the existing, where the dwelling is now, along Kingman, they do have the lot width. But however, it's a corner lot, you're also required to have, on both sides of the road, 140 feet.
Okay. Let's just talk about the proposed new lot. The frontage along South Orange Avenue running from west to east, the A75 requirement currently requires 140 feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the variance you're seeking seeks to reduce that for the new subdivision from 140 feet to 100 feet. Is that correct?
It will be 80 feet.
80 feet. So I believe it's 100, but perhaps council can direct that.
No,
The frontage along South Orange Avenue.
along South Orange, now, the way the zoning reads is you need to go back to the setback line and maintain that width for 40 feet going
Okay.
towards the rear.
And in the rear, the width of the property would be 80 feet?
80 feet, correct.
And the requirement for A75 under the current statute is what?
140.
So we'd be going in the back from 140 to 80. Is that right?
No, the lot remains 80 feet wide. The lot width is 80 feet,
Understood. From front to back?
yes.
Okay. No further questions.
Any other questions for this witness or members of the public? Yes, sir. Please come up to the microphone, identify yourself by name and address, please. Thank you.
Robert Adler, 120 Ralston Avenue. You're not a planner, are you?
No,
You're not a traffic expert?
no,
Just a surveyor?
yes.
So when you say that you don't see any concern with the driveway exiting on...
Sorry, I'm getting a signal that somehow you're not being picked up. Could you get a little closer to the microphone? I don't know what to tell you. I get a flash from the back. That's all I can
Is
do.
this working?
Can you hear him now?
Is this working?
Yeah, it's good.
mic is working, you have to talk into it. Okay. So when you say you don't see any concern with the driveway exiting on South Orange Avenue, that's not any expert opinion.
No, that's a comment I made on the planners, when the attorney asked me the question on the planners. Have I reviewed the question? My comment was I did, and the two issues that I can comment on essentially is that there are other driveways on South Orange Avenue.
Okay, but you're not giving an expert opinion on whether or not there's a problem with another driveway exiting onto South Orange
No.
Avenue?
No.
Thank you. Any other questions for this witness from members of the public? Yes, ma'am.
Amy Don, 521 Center Street. I'm a South Orange resident. I should also say that I also sit on the Historic Preservation Commission, just to clarify that. I just have a question for you. You did compare this property to other properties that you said are smaller in size. Are you aware that those are non-conforming now to the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for this witness from members of the public? Okay. Seeing none, counsel, you can move on to your next witness.
Yes, thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give to this board is the whole truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and address and spell your last name.
Lloyd Stevenson. I'm the architect, and last name is spelled Stevenson, S-T-E-P-H-E-N-S-O-N, and that's Junior. And my residence of business would be 76 Maple Street in Patterson.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevenson, are you licensed in the state of New Jersey?
Yes.
And your licensure is as an architect?
Yes.
And what is your related educational background?
I graduated from NGIT. Can't remember the year, I guess 1999 or 2000. And I've been a licensed architect since 2002. I've been before the Orange Planning Board, or I believe the Zoning Board, the Newark Zoning and Planning. I've done the Township of Manham, New Jersey. That was also the Zoning Board, I believe, and they had an historical commission issue with that project as well. I've been before the Irvington Zoning, Patterson, New Jersey, East Orange, Parsippany.
Thank you. I'd like the commissioners to accept Mr. Stevenson as an expert witness.
Any objections? We accept him.
Thank you.
Qualifications.
Can you briefly describe the proposed minor subdivision, including the variances for the minimum lot width?
Well, I believe the surveyor did that. I don't want to go on top of his. Pretty much what I have here is the owner pretty much contacted me to have me help or assist in just laying out a floor plan, a design for the house, so that as she's proceeding with the subdivision, the board and even the residents who may have any issues or objection can just see what the structure would look like, how big it would be on the property, how it will attempt and for the most part conform to the historical commission, and just at least have an appealing look that blends in with the neighborhood. So on my sheet here that you should have with your application A101, I'm giving you a rendering that I just did here of the site plan, which will show the structure along with the driveway coming onto South Orange Ave.
Excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
Richardson, can you...
Oh, you need to see this more?
Step so we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if the public can also see it as
Do you
well.
want to offer this? Do you want to offer this document? Do you want to offer this in evidence?
To the,
You have it as part of the application, so it might be part of...
not the coloring. Yeah, what I did, I colored the plans that you have.
You need to
so
use a microphone. Sorry.
You have the A101 as part of part of the application. It might not be a color rendering, but it's substantially it is the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you,
So it's the same
if,
drawing,
yeah,
but
if you
it's
want to
colored?
hold it,
It's
if,
colored.
yeah, providing how things go tonight and the public wants to see it,
Would you like
I
to
don't
offer
have
that
an
as
issue.
Exhibit A1?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. So on the lot, I have a structure that, and you can see on my sheet A101, I give you a zoning summary chart, I called it, in the lower right corner, and that would just give you the footprint, the area of the structure that we're proposing, that, you know, also can be altered since this is just for the subdivision, the height of the structure, the lot area, the lot coverage, and just showing how much it would conform to your zoning ordinance, your bulk area requirement. It also would list in the gray area that would match the surveyor's plan showing the areas where we would be asking for a variance, and of course that would be the lot width shown in the column under the proposed new lot, and of course the lot width for the existing structure. So I have the proposed structure, about 1,700 square feet. It's a one-family dwelling. On the plan here, I've just kind of added some color so you can see the gray area being the driveway going along the side. The owner pretty much instructed me some of the things that she was aware of and being told that is a requirement on design is that you really don't want to have the driveway entrance from the front, so how can we have it to the side or to the back without having the structure being too close to one neighbor's house or too further to the other one, or having an unsightly of, car lights, shining on one neighbor's or the other. So I worked up the design to have a driveway about 12 feet wide is what I showed in my plan. You go around the back area, and the entrance to the garage would be at the rear. Of course, the rear area which she would be using as a patio, that area would be paved anyway, so it's not like we're taking something more out of the design of the lot, for recreation for a rear yard. And we do meet all the requirement in terms of lot area and lot coverage. On sheet A202, I'm actually giving you color rendering. Here on my plan, you have sheet A202 in your package there. It's not rendered, but I added color just to give you an idea of what the owner would like and what we are proposing and how we are making the design of the structure at least be of some visual, blending in with the neighborhood, and some historical values added to the structure. One of the things that, I did work out with the owner, and she really loved the idea of having the barn-type roof, so you'll see at the side elevation here, facing the existing residence, you'll see the shape of the roof with, almost a gambrel style, but, the breaking up of the roof plane. And towards the front, just having a nice high-pitched roof, adding dormers to it, which will kind of match some of the dormer, design in the homes in the area there. If you go down her block and around the other, there's a lot of different styles of architecture. So to really try to pick a house and say, let's try to resemble one or the other, it wouldn't really do any justice to having this new structure here to try to completely match it, but at least to match in terms of how, I guess, fenestration is pretty much used throughout the house, the windows, the doors, a porch, a balcony in the front, and the dormers, and of course having a nice high roof profile. So number one is, of course, the front elevation. The materials being used, the owner really, I try to get her to go away and maybe do some type of wood paneling or something else, but she really loved the stucco. There are other homes in the area that uses the stucco finish. We're not talking about the EFA system, which is the exterior insulation and finish system, but the true stucco cemented system. So she loved that idea. So I pretty much used the stucco system in the upper section of the house, and towards the lower section we would either go with a masonry or cultural stone, the way I showed it here in the elevation here. Towards the rear, elevation number 3, you can see the entrance to the garage is right there in the rear. We kind of broke up the elevation, so you just don't have a straight up flat facade. So you have a little porch coming out the back, the door going into the kitchen. Once again, nice tall windows, breaking up the plane, giving the I guess the wall of the house just some feel, having windows throughout. A bit of symmetry. Sometimes you got to break it up, as you see in this elevation. We only have the windows on one side. You don't need to have complete symmetry all the way throughout. Number 4 is the other side elevation. Of course, this I believe is facing the residence. I think I got that wrong the first time around. And of course, you can see the porch coming out towards the front and the small balcony on the top with doors leading into master bedroom suite hall. On your sheet A201,
Before you start,
Go ahead.
have admitted as Exhibit A2 the colored rendering of your sheet A202.
On A201 is the floor plan that you should have with your drawing package there. And pretty much, I guess the owner had been pretty much going back and forth with this for quite a long time. So she had a plan started
We don't
with
have that one.
We don't have that.
Just to be clear, that was not in the packet of
Oh,
drawings.
you don't have
that we
the
were
floor plan?
provided.
Okay, I'm sorry. You didn't submit the floor plan? Okay.
You have to use the mic. Sorry about that. These plans were not included in the application. Because again, as a minor subdivision application, a site plan is not required, but again, we were trying to accommodate concerns made by the Historical Preservation Commission, and the interior would not have a bearing on, I would think, on the Historic Preservation Commission or their concerns.
Right, but as long as you're referencing it and showing it, we're just mentioning that we don't have it.
Okay, so
And it's,
Okay.
we cannot.
well,
It's not.
it's your evidence to offer, so
Yeah,
if you
I
want to
mean-
speak to it, you can
Yeah.
speak to it. If
I
you
mean,
don't
it's
want
not-
to, that's fine too.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you, we don't have that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we don't have to go through it. It was just here in case anyone wanted to. When you look at the elevation and you go, well, okay, what is this? Is this a one-family? Is it a two-family? Is it a three-family? The floor plan is just here to show you how the one-family is pretty much laid out, that you walk in through the front porch, living room, dining room, kitchen, den, two-car garage in the rear, just so you can just see the connection between the plans and the elevation. The second floor, you have the bedroom, the master bedroom suite, the hallway, 2 bathrooms, and the stairs going down to the first floor, and the study in that section there. And I believe that's just about it. I have another board that was just to show some photos of other structures within the area. If the issue comes up, okay, how does this building kind of relate to the other structures there? I don't know if we need to go through that. Most of them are in black and white, but you have several different styles of homes. So if the discussion goes into, okay, what does it look like, then I guess I can go through that, but I'll kind of leave that
Ms.
aside.
Richardson, were you offering the floor plans or no?
Yes, I will. I just wanted him to finish his presentation. As far as the plans, the floor plans as indicated as A201, we'd like them admitted as Exhibit A3. Did you have an opportunity to, as part of your work on behalf of the owner, to look at other homes in the immediate proximity of the property?
Yes.
Did you identify any properties that front South Orange Avenue in proximity to this particular lot?
That fronts as in being across the street
Like
from
on
it?
South Orange Avenue?
Yeah, well, there's a one residence across the street from where this property is going to have its driveway coming off of the onto South Orange Ave, and I believe I took a picture of that. this structure here. This is maybe a little bit off too. If I have the surveyor's plan, it's a little bit off to the side of the property, but directly across the street on South Orange Ave, you have this two-story structure. As it comes towards South Orange, it drops to one story, and this, I don't want to say the material of it, but from where I was, I thought it was, like a stucco, could have been a little bit more masonry. And this is a front view of it, and going further down South Orange Ave, looking towards, I guess, the downtown area. This is another shot of that structure there, so you can see that it's two-story in this area here, and then it drops to one story, which I believe could be, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's a garage coming off of that side street there.
What streets is that? Is that between Kingman and Stanley?
No, this is across the street from the property, off of South Orange Ave. Yeah, across South Orange.
You're saying there's... So you're saying the driveway goes to South Orange Ave?
No, they don't have they don't have a driveway onto South Orange. The properties that actually have an entrance on South Orange Ave, there's actually one. If this is actually the surveyor plan, South Orange Avenue, here is where we're going to come in. There's a property after you cross Stanley Road, so that's a little further down. So let's say a block and a half down. That is almost like a Cape Cod type setup, like a 1.5 story brick front building. It's very small, and that has a driveway going on to South Orange Ave. And if you go in the opposite way, as the surveyor said, westward, there's a corner property on Kingman Ave that has this driveway, of course, on Kingman Road, but you go past that property, the very next property, I believe you're going to run into at least 3 small. Once again, they're like, your Cape Cod type of setup, 1.5 story, and they very small, and they have their driveways going directly onto South Orange Ave, and they're bunched together. Whereas this one, there isn't a driveway that's immediately close to it, so you won't have a conflict of having, 2 curb cuts, 2 driveways coming onto South Orange Ave if that ever becomes an issue. There's a good amount of distance between, this driveway and the other driveways, which are more bunched together. As you go towards the west side, you would find that those 3 homes towards the corner as you go beyond Kingman Road are a little bit closer together. And the one that's on the opposite end, that's a little further down. I believe you'll have the proposed driveway that we would have on our site plan. There isn't a curb cut here, but there is a little walkway on that neighboring property, but that's not a curb cut, but at least you can see that, and then there's nothing else, and then you cross Stanley Road, and then you run into the next property that has the driveway going onto South Orange Ave. So you're not going to have an issue of congestion of having, so many driveways coming or cutting into South Orange Ave.
And based on your design, will the cars be backing out, or once they go in? How?
Yeah, with having the garage entering from the rear of the property, it kind of takes away from having a nice rear yard, but you have it paved as a patio anyway. But what it does, it gives you the ability to have the car make what we will call a K-turn, to turn and go into the driveway and also to come out. Now I show the 2 cars on my plan here just in front of the rear part of the structure, only so you can visually see, okay, this is a driveway, this is where the cars can come in, and that's the amount of space you have. I know there was a question, I don't know, it was from a comment from a neighbor or from the plan, I can't quite remember, of whether there would be enough room to have a turn to get into the driveway, and they would have room to make the turn. The driveway I have shown here is only about 36, deep. We can always add, another 4 feet or so to make it 40 feet, so you can have, or plus to make you have more of a turn. But this is not a commercial property; it's a private residence. It'll be more control and little bit of traffic, just the people who live in here. And my point when I was first doing it was, if you had a driveway where you come in, you know, whether it's 12 feet or 18 feet wide, the driveway, and you were to turn into a parking stall, you only need about 18 feet. So what I was doing was just taking the 18 feet of a car was to just come in, and I'll just use my pen, come in the driveway, and let's say you didn't want to go into the garage. Most people don't even use their garage. They park outside. Most of the outside design, I don't know how you would use. I would use my garage, but I've designed a couple of homes or renovated a couple of homes. When I go there, their garage is just filled with, you know, just storage stuff. And I'm like, okay, you want a 2-3 car garage, what are you going to do, store more stuff? And pretty much it's just what the garage becomes. So you really want to make sure you do have, you know, a driveway that if you do have someone who does that, you know, they do have enough room to park. But the cars would come in, and my intent was they would just turn there if they didn't want to go into the garage, and that would be enough room for them to stay there. And then if they want to come out, they could do their K-turn and come out. And the same way, if cars aren't parked here and the intent is that cars would not be parked, they would just go into the driveway, then you come in, you can make that K-turn and then come in. And once again, if it's an issue with the planner or if it's in your ordinance that you require that you have so much space, we do have room to extend that paved area, you know, whatever amount of distance, another 4 feet or so to get where you have 40, you know, or plus, you know, width, so a car can turn and get into the driveway, but they can maneuver this. There's a private, once again, driveway, and it's their private garage, not a public facility, and it's not a, you know, a party house where you're going to have 6 or 7 cars.
Okay, in your previous testimony, you mentioned with regard to the exterior design of the facade of the building. Is it your opinion that the proposed home would fit into the historic district?
I believe it will, but once again, speaking with the owner and going back and forth, we were going through the design, she really didn't have any objection to what the Historical Commission would want or would recommend. So pretty much this is how she would just present it to the Historical Commission, and they can comment on if they want to see, you know, maybe, you know, shutters thrown on there, or if they want to see the windows have mutton patterns. I mean, I don't think this application in any way is trying to do away with what the historical value of the area is. I mean, speaking with the owner, and I believe she can testify to how long she's lived in the neighborhood and just how long she's been here, so she does have a feel for what she like and what she see in the area. And once again, we're not, at least I'm not trying to present anything that would detract from the neighborhood at all.
Going back to A101, which is Exhibit A1. Can you address how the existing shrubs and mature trees on the 2 proposed lots will be addressed?
Yeah. Well, the shrubs going along South Orange Ave, actually, I didn't show it on the plan. Sorry, excuse me, my nose is going to start running now. But I shaded it in here on my rendering, showing the shrubs going along South Orange Ave. The only amount of that shrub we would remove, the trees can stay. It would just be enough so that you can get a visual, and of course for security reason and for the public, that there is a residence here. So the ones going along the existing property can remain. The one going along the new property would remain up to an extent where you can at least see the front of the house, and then we'll leave some, and of course to clear a path for the driveway and visual, so you can actually see as you're coming out. You're coming out front with, you're not backing out, so you at least want to be able to get up to the street and have that visual sight line of South Orange Ave. So those are only the amount. The biggest thing would be to try to leave as much of the shrubs as we can, and pretty much presently the middle of the property is pretty much bare. I mean, I don't believe, when I walked the site this weekend again, I was looking at just an empty, you could practically ice skate on her property. It's just so large, and just there's like nothing, you know, it's probably too much for the house unless she had horses running in the backyard. So putting the home there, you're not really tearing down any trees, and I don't think there's going to be any roots from any of the nearby trees running in that area. If there is one there, maybe there's one, but I don't remember seeing that one there, and I don't think it's on the surveyor plan. I don't want to say that, and it is, but there's pretty much nothing in the middle of the property. So everything would just be bringing the driveway out onto South Orange Ave. The amount of these shrubs that we may or will have to alter to get up and get into and onto the property. And then, of course, the driveway going along this property line, we would actually have shrubs in that area. The owner can work out with the Historic Commission what type of fencing or your zoning ordinance what is required if she wants to put the fencing along that property and the material of it, whether it's wood, wrought iron, whatever it is. We can do that to meet whatever the requirements are.
Again, referring to this A101, can you address how the utilities for the proposed dwelling will be taken care of?
I show coming into, and this is preliminary on my site plan, the tie-in for the gas, the water, and the sewage coming in along the South Orange Ave. There is a utility pole towards the back corner of pretty much the neighboring property. That pole service the existing structure. That's something that I believe at some point when we get our approval and we get further to developing the site plan, that we will talk over with the utility company in terms of what they prefer, and if we have to, either they would recommend whether they would have another pole here to service that residence so you don't cross over, or if we have to have some type of overhead easement. I'm not sure yet. I haven't really gotten that far into speaking with how the utility company would handle that part of
Would
the
that be
wiring.
addressed in construction drawings in conformance with building codes?
I believe so, and maybe the engineering department would require, before we, they probably want to see a survey plan further develop if whatever comments we have here that we have to improve. But once again, at that point, that's getting the utility company involved, and you want to make sure that you have the project going forward before you go into that.
Okay. In preparing your architectural design for the exterior, were there any resources or experiences you relied on to the rendering for the exterior?
Well, the drawing is what's really based on the owner's desire, a previous design of the owner, bit of my experience, and just what the impact dormers would have on the structure. The material, once again, the owner wanted stucco, so to try to use stucco, but to bring in some wood trim, as you can see here, a large rake and overhangs on the roof, kind of, if you just have stucco, it almost will look kind of plain. So if you at least trim the windows, add these balconies, the railing, break up the base with a different material, it just kind of gives it a nice feel. You'll see there are there are several different types of, and really, literally several, I can't really say 3 or 4, in the immediate area of this this historical zoning area, that you're going to see different styles of homes. Of course, different material. You're going to see wood siding, you'll see some masonry structure, and you'll see 1 or 2 stucco type structure. So it's, my first impression was, okay, I would love to match the wood, but then there's brick and there's stucco. Okay, what do you want? So pretty much, like I said, the owner, she's lived in this neighborhood. She leaves her house every day, so she sees the architecture. So she also had a good feel of what she wanted this house to look like.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness.
Okay, Susan or Sal?
I do appreciate the renderings. Are you going to be testifying as to the planning testimony for the variances, which is really focused on the subdivision and how it relates to the positive criteria and the master plan, where there are very specific statements regarding subdivisions, particularly in historic districts?
No. Well, I don't know if it pertains to historic districts, but your ordinance does provide some guidance on subdivisions, and I believe the surveyor addressed I believe the surveyor addressed the subdivision and the variances being sought.
He provided the factual basis. He didn't provide any expert testimony on the positive and negative criteria. And in our memo, we have very specific questions and comments regarding the actual variance testimony for the variance associated with the minor subdivision that really is the focus of this application.
Are you familiar with the zoning ordinance or the municipal land use laws sufficient enough to provide testimony concerning positive criteria concerning the subdivision?
Well, I'm not a planner, so I don't think I should really go into that. Yeah.
And I could ask the surveyor the same and have him represent. We don't have a planner here.
The problem I think you're going to run into, which was this was specifically addressed in the memo that was issued by the planner, dated February 17th, 2015. Were you provided with a copy of that memo?
Yes, we have it.
Okay. It says on page 3, we recommend the applicant provide planning testimony on the positive and negative aspects of the proposed subdivision. Then it goes into mentioning what should be addressed in the positive and negative criteria. I mean, the plans are the drawings, the renderings are very nice, but ultimately, as the planner has said, that's really what's put before us. You're asking, the applicant is asking us to basically ignore or overrule the town's zoning ordinance, and in order to do that, you as the applicant have to demonstrate that you're providing and meeting the positive criteria while addressing the negative criteria, and that's sort of at the essence of the proofs that the applicant has to provide. So, I didn't ask you this when you provided your list of witnesses because I didn't know who might address it, but if the surveyor, if neither the surveyor nor the architect is a planner, and you as the counsel, as legal counsel, are not planning on addressing this, we're going to be left short of the key element of what it is that the applicant is supposed to prove in order for us to be able to render an opinion or make a decision in your favor, or your applicant's, your client's favor. So, it certainly doesn't prevent you from completing the testimony, and if this witness is not going to address that, that's fine, and we can continue to talk to this witness, but I'm just trying to reinforce what the planner was saying. That is our responsibility, and doesn't sound like you have the ability to provide us with that testimony this evening, from what I'm hearing. So, should we just continue with this witness for now, or do you want to address this subject?
No, we could continue. Well, I was finished with his direct testimony. So,
right.
if other than Ms. Gruer's question, I've addressed it. He's not the planner. He can't speak to that.
Okay. Susan, do you have any other questions for this witness?
Not at this point, no.
Okay. Sal?
The only concern I see is the driveway. Well, I understand that there may be enough room in the back of the driveway for a K-turn. If there are visitors to the home, if there's somebody comes and visits and parks in the driveway, most likely they'll have to back out of the driveway. Do you think it's safe for cars to be backing out of the driveway onto South Orange Avenue?
Well, no. The intent is that they would have enough room in the back if the cars are in the garage. I'm sorry, but I only showed the cars on the outside to show that you can have cars parked here as well as in the garage, but also just to show where the entrance to the garage is. But the intent is, let's say you have 2 cars in the garage, you have 2 cars on the outside, that's a total of 4 cars. Now, if someone's having a party, I don't think there's any driveway on any of these properties, and even the ones that front south. And not that we want to say that, well, they got the problem, we'll do the same, but at least we've done enough with the design of the driveway and pushing everything to the back and giving the space for them to turn that they can, try to limit that from happening. Now, if they're going to have a party, they're going to have 5, 10 cars here, then that's different that would happen to anyone. But I would say for residents who would live here and have their own vehicle and maybe have a friend or a family member come over, 1 or 2 or 3, you do have space to have 2 cars in the garage, 2, maybe 3 cars, let's say 2 out here safely to be able to maneuver to get out and head back out towards South Orange Ave without backing up. So, like I said, and we do have the room to extend the paved area in the back a bit more. I was just trying not to do too much because I wanted to really, have a green, backyard in the area, not to just continue to add more pavement. And of course, we want to make sure we stay within the guideline of your lot coverage to begin with. I haven't checked yet to see if I was to extend the driveway or the paved area to see if we would exceed any of your numbers as of yet. But I do feel, and by laying it out this way, that with having 2 cars in the garage, you still have enough room for 2 cars in the back to be able to maneuver and come out without backing out onto the street. If they're going to have another 2 or 3 cars come over, visitors, then for anyone that would be, difficult to try to get back out onto the street without having to back up, and they'll find ways to turn, maybe go onto the grass. You don't want them to do that, but, that's the driver can only do but so much,
Do you see any concern, assuming a car does have to back out for whatever reason, do you see any concerns with the landscaping that's there proposed with a driver being able to see a vehicle coming, heading west?
Well, I think, no, we would have, low shrubs or just grass in this area. I kind of just made it green just to make this is all, the landscaped area. But the shrubs that's right now, these are I call them shrubs, but they're really almost like trees going along South Orange Ave. They're pretty high, so that's why I was saying that we would only remove a portion. We don't want to remove it all because I think it's a nice feature going along South Orange Ave to have that here. And of course, the existing residence faces Kingman Road, so having these trees, you see that property. It's a side view of it. It's a more pleasant view. It's not a bad thing to go along South Orange Ave and just seeing the structure already. The house across the street. It looks nice if you're going down the side street, but from South Orange Ave, it's kind of a 1-story structure, and it doesn't have that great of an appeal. So at least if you remove some of the shrubs, you can see the structure, but also just enough so you can have the visual of the sidewalk in the street as you're coming out on the South Orange Ave. But I do see that, we'll have to remove some of those the trees that are here or shrubberies that are here, and of course do something with the landscape to get you to come out, but it can be done.
Sal, any other questions? Okay, questions from members of the board for this witness? Michael?
Have you explored with the county as yet the approvals for curb cut onto South Orange?
Well, again, this is an application for a minor subdivision, and it wasn't required to seek approval from the Essex County Planning Board. However, the notice of this hearing was submitted by certified mail to the Planning Board. So when and if the application is approved, including construction, and we have to contact the Essex County Planning Board to get approval, we will certainly do that. And we would ask that the commissioners consider that as a condition of any approval they may grant.
Any other questions from members of the board? Okay, so we're going to open this up to members from the public. Anybody who has questions for this witness, please feel free to come up, identify yourself, name and address, and address your question to the witness. Yes, sir.
Robert Adler, 120 Ralston Avenue. Mr. Stevenson, what's directly to the right of the driveway?
To the right side of the driveway?
Yes.
There's actually a garage, and there's a parking area for, I believe this is an office, a residence used as an office building. I can't quite remember. But when I was there, I just saw a bunch of cars parked along this area. But you do have some trees and more shrubberies as a buffer along here that we would, of course, honor, or at least try to keep some shrubs along our edge. I mean, I think one of the questions on the list was how much of this 1 foot space can we use for planting or to have a buffer or for fencing. And of course, if we go by fencing, the fences would just help to kind of buffer the property a bit alike. But also, if we had to modify the site plan a bit, I would actually just add another foot or so you have 2 more feet, so we can have some more shrubberies, planted in that area to act as a buffer. But you do have a bunch of a tree line going along this area. Walking the site this weekend, the trees, of course, are pretty much, leaves are all gone. You could just see the whole property, and it just doesn't look, it didn't look great to me just seeing the cars parked there and then the small garage there. So I do think we are doing an improvement to just this corner area here. And once again, the visual elevation from South Orange Ave would, in my opinion, would just help. It's not like the owner is just subdividing and putting some cheap house to sell. It really has to meet the historical commission guideline, and that would be the intent of what we want to do with the structure.
So looking, you talked about a K-turn, and certainly with those cars there, just eyeballing it.
They don't have to be there. They're just there so you can see, to give you some scale, really, when you look at the plan. But pretty much this is the garage entrance, so you drive in, those cars are just shown. Like pretty much if you have a garage, or if it's your home, you may have 2 cars or 1 car parked in your garage, and you have someone else parked outside the garage door in a driveway. This is just illustrating that you do have the ability to do that. It may not be 2, it may be 1. They may not have to turn this way. They may be turned, completely parallel to the garage. But you do have enough room that if you were to drive down a one-way drive, which whether it's 12 or 18 feet, and then you can turn into, let's say, a normal stall if you're at a mall or a shopping center, which would be 18 to 20 feet deep. Let's use the lesser as a private residence. You do have enough room to kind of turn in a one-way drive and then come out. Of course, you have to back in and out to make that turn. We're trying not to make the whole rear of the property a parking lot, So you can have it paved, maybe use nice brick paver, but also you want to have some green area. But if we have to make it a bit larger so that they can make the turn, we have that ability to do that. I would just kind of watch and make sure that I keep my lot coverage to match whatever the zoning department require.
So you're actually not sure if you can do that? And
no, I'm sure we can. It's
even with the lot coverage?
Well, the lot coverage, I just don't want to say that, we can do it, and then, of course, the number is there. Testimony that goes on for record. So I want to make sure I have room to make a designer's, revision and decision and not have it come back, well, you can't do that, or maybe they may recommend that we do extend the paved area in the back. Of course, we'll have to look into it. But like I said, the turning can be done, and of course, if we can add the additional paved area, we can do it. I could check to see if I have here lot coverage. Yeah, I don't think I can. I was on the surveyor. I didn't calculate for the surveyor. Normally, I put lot coverage. Okay, 40% is the required for your area, and I have for the proposed lot right now at about 38.4%. So it's
really
close.
Couldn't expand that.
Yeah, well, you could. I don't know how much more we would go, but there's always other place to take it from. Whether it's these walkways, which I have shown at 4 feet in width, we bring it down to a 3-foot walkway, or we change that. But there's a way to maneuver the plan if that becomes an issue. I'm not saying that it is right now.
And
But
where's? I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. You go.
And where's the patio that you were talking about?
Well, the patio. Well, I'm just talking about using the part of the patio area, or the area in the back, which is paved, which can be patio. But let's say when you come out, this brown area here is actually the rear porch. You step down. I have a walkway to get to the the driveway area, that if we were to expand it, it's pretty much being part of a patio or a terrace area, the driveway area in here. So there is an additional area for a patio as of yet. If right now it's all going to be planted, but if we were to extend it, all we're doing, we're kind of extending. You don't really want to make it all paved. You want to make it part of a patio. So let's say you'll have brick pavers would be this old area that you can drive your car on top of it. On other uses can be you can have seating in that area. It's going to be like brick pavers. It's going to be an area that you can also drive on top of. I'm not saying to extend it.
But I mean, if it's a patio, it's got furniture. How do you drive?
Well, I mean, it's how you use it. Like I say, if you need it. I wouldn't say that you're going to actually put the furniture out right now. You can call it a patio, but you can pave it. But whether it's going to be the driveway for the cars, the parking area for the cars or not, it depends on how they're going to use it. If you really need to have that much room to have a car turn, or you're going to have so many cars on here. And don't mean to confuse it, but when I just think of patio, I'm just thinking if you pave it, it's almost just like an asphalt. But if you kind of put pavers down, it looks a little bit more nicer. So that's why I may have used the word, a patio or a terrace in terms of just calling it a driveway.
What exactly is the distance from this driveway to the driveway into South Orange Avenue, the closest one west of this property?
That I don't have, but if I go to the surveyor's plan, you're just going to see how far away you are. I mean, you're probably talking about 100, 200 feet. I don't have a scale to put to this, but if this is our lot here at this corner here of South Orange, this is actually the surveyor's plan sheet. And I don't see a title on it, but I guess it's just their block diagram.
What drawing are you looking at? I'm sorry.
Sheet 2 of 2, it will be the surveyor's plan prepared by the 200-foot radius map, And on that map, where you see our property is located, and we're going to the right side of it, or to the east. Which one do you want, the east or the west? Well, the west side, you're going to go past Kingman Road. You have this larger property here on Lot 17, and then right after that, you're going to run into 3 homes that's going to have driveways going on to South Orange Ave.
Right, and the distance to the
well, that I don't have the distance on me, but if I'm looking at this, if our property is 216, and assuming, let's say, we're going to be about 200 to the corner of Kingman Road, you have the Kingman Road right-of-way, which is, I don't know if I put the right-of-way on the plan there, whether it's 60 or 40 feet. Kingman Road is 60 feet, so we're probably, to use simple numbers, we're back to 200. You're going to have the width of that property that's on the other side of Kingman Street, that's Lot 17. That's about another 232 feet. So you're almost talking about 400 plus, almost 500 feet, roughly, to the driveway going to the west. And I think you'll be similarly going towards the east side where you run into that one house where all the homes start to get smaller and smaller as you get to more towards the Newark area of South Orange Ave.
Okay. There's 2 more things. On A101, you have some trees designated. Are those those are the trees that are there?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm going off of the surveyor's plan, yes.
And I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. You say people don't park in their garages?
Well, I was just trying to use, when I was explaining just the driveway in terms of my experience in homes I've designed, and not that I'm actually saying it as some type of, confirmation or let's say like a definite, statement that people don't use their driveway. I was just explaining it with the homes that I've designed. Just over the years that, when I've gone to either do renovation on their house, whether they're doing a second floor addition or they're extending their house, and I'm measuring their house. I go into their driveway, and there's just storage that they just store stuff in it, and then their cars are parked outside. My intent was just when I was just explaining about the cars, leaving enough room in the driveway in the back so that cars can park on outside versus going inside, that it does work, that it's not overblown. Here we are talking about a K-turn and whether the car's got enough room to maneuver to go in. It kind of works hand in hand, whether you're going to use your driveway or not, that you want to have, a functional driveway that you can, yes, turn and not have to, back out onto South Orange Ave, and, do the best we can and hope that it can suffice for the person who's going to be living in this home, and that they're not going to live in there and have like 7 cars that they're going to have on the property. 4 or 5, I think, would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from, I'm sorry, did you wish to? Any other questions from members of the audience for this witness? Again, please come, state your name, address. Thank you.
Amy Don. Are you aware that Kingman and Stanley Roads have gates on them that are permanently closed at this point due to the high volume of traffic that goes through, that used to go through that neighborhood?
Yeah, I'm not sure when the gates were put on it, but I've been visiting the applicant here for a couple of years, and I've always seen the gates there. And
right, so it was because of the high volume of traffic. So will your driveway be adding traffic to South Orange Avenue?
To South Orange, well, it's a driveway, it's a person's home, so it wouldn't really.
So how many cars a day would be pulling in and out possibly?
Well, it depends on who's living there. I would say most homes typically would have at least 2 to 3 cars.
Okay.
So,
and what's the material that your driveway you're proposing?
the drive, we haven't gone, I showed it as a grayscale, but whether the owner decides to make it pavers, brick pavers, or if it's asphalt, whatever meets the requirement of whether it's the zoning or the historical commission, the owner would follow through and do that. This is just for clarification of just so you can see in color.
So this is an impervious material?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you're talking about the possibility that might have to be extended, so we'd have to be, I would be concerned. Are you concerned about the lot coverage then if you have
I kind of mentioned that repeatedly, that the driveway is what it is, and if we have to extend it, that I would just go back and forth and make sure that we do meet the lot coverage. And of course, we wouldn't be looking for another variance. I've done this quite a few times now in some of the houses I've had their projects, whether it's commercial or small residential, that I had to present before board. Even the last one I mentioned, which is in Menham, which actually had a historical issue with that one. The same situation where we had driveway. This owner had 2 driveways, one coming, he was on the corner lot, and he didn't want to, it was existing. And they told him, well, it's non-conforming, what you got to do is cut down the driveway. He kept complaining, and I pretty much had to tweak that plan back and forth to get it to work where we got the numbers down. So I'm aware of the coverage thing, and that's what, my role as the architect would be, that if we had to extend it, where's the trade-off? Does the house get smaller? Do we eliminate some of the walkway, whatever can be done. So far, the way we have it laid out, we fall under those numbers. And we're, like I said, my number, I told the other person, was like 38.4. So I can manipulate the plan if I had to, to get the number down. But everything had been, let's not ask for another variance. Let's try to stay within and below that 40% requirement. So, it's not an issue for me. If we had to make the driveway bigger, I would, with the owner, just say, okay, we need a larger area for a turn because it's a concern from everyone else, and then we would just have to look at the house and say, okay, what can we do to shave off some, whether it's a foot and a half from this home? Because pretty much that was one of the problems we had with this house originally. It was a previous architect that did the design. And, I've worked with the owner on another project, and I guess that architect is some distance away, and then she said, I would like for you to help me with this. Here's the design, what can you do to get this to work? And pretty much I just had the floor plan. You put that floor plan on here, the driveway, the garage, was kind of L-shaped and it stuck out, larger than the property, and so I had to tweak that plan and get it to scale it down so it fit on the site. And the factors I was using pretty much were the zoning ordinance requirements or the bulk area. So the lot coverage was one of the main issues that I had in terms of getting everything to fit on the site. So if
Thank you. So,
Okay.
so I believe that you testified that you moved the garage to the back because of concern about having the garage in the front.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that the owner brought to my attention, that, it just wasn't a good appearance to
So
have
then
the
I believe
entrance
that
coming
you
in
said
from the
by
front.
moving the garage to the back, that you had to thereby add the K-turn area, and that you testified that you then won't have a nice rear yard. So
Well,
if
that
you're
was just-
possibly going to have to extend the driveway, will you then have it detract further from
Well,
the
no,
yard,
no.
which already
Well,
you
it's there,
testified
no.
is not
But
a nice rear yard?
no, it was not how big it is. It was just that it was there. That's just my being. If I was, when I take on a design of a house, I always put the owner's opinion, what they want first. But while you're doing it, you kind of take notes, and then you go and you start working on it later on in the week, and you start going, what, his or her idea is not working, I fight to get their plan to work. Then on top of that, I come up with 3 or 4 other design, off of my own. Still working off of what they want, and I tweak that plan, and I either get that to work or I don't get it to work.
So then these are not the final designs?
No, well, they are fine to the owner because they're based on what she had. But like I said, the way I kind of explained the garage in the back was just my opinion. Maybe for me, as I'm talking, I kind of, put myself in the shoe in terms of things that I probably would have liked as well. Not that what I like matters more than the applicant here. That's just,
But
see
you're
that
going
there
to
are
be
different
asking
design
the
ideas.
planning board to make a decision
No,
on
no,
a
no.
minor
This is-
subdivision based on a prop house that you haven't really determined where it sits on the
No,
property?
no, this is where it sits. I'm just being real, just giving you me, just
Okay.
being
And the driveway itself, it was very hard to see because the plans were so small that I saw. Is there actually land material to the side of the driveway, or does it directly go to the edge of the property line?
No, I kept a curb at least a foot off of the property line in this area, and I believe that was one of the planner's comments was, what were we going to do with that? So that would be planted, and if I had to, based on comments, like I said, I've been to many boards, and sometimes they make comments that if I had to make adjustment, and if that was a requirement, okay, we would like to have more of a buffer, we would actually.
So if you had more of a buffer, you'd have to narrow the driveway and you have to make sure
Well,
the driveway
no, like I
complies,
no, we
right?
would. That's going into redesigning and doing things like that. I don't-
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you tell me the architectural style of the house you've designed?
Well, this pretty much is based off of the owner. I guess we were trying to blend in with what we saw in the area. I mean, I can't give you an exact name to the style of it, but a mixture of using just that barn type roof, and then the windows and the porch is just kind of blend into the different styles that you see in the area. I can't give you the exact name, of what it is.
Okay,
you
so
know.
you don't have an exact name for the architectural style?
Well, no,
you're
because
trying
there
to
isn't
blend in.
really one for the area. There's so many different styles. There's so many.
Well, there's
mixtures.
actually, never
Yeah.
mind. You also said that you're planning to have this reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission?
Well, I don't know what the step is.
Because you said that several times, and these plans were not presented, so I'm just wondering if you
I'm
will
sorry,
be coming.
I'm sorry, I have to apologize. I've been informed that they're having problems with the microphones, and that apparently the sound is not being carried properly. And I've been asked if we could please take a 5-minute recess in order to make sure this is done. You can continue to ask
Okay.
questions, and I understand you're not done with this witness. But if you could just bear with us and give us a 5-minute break, is that okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we're reconvening back in session, South Orange Planning Board regular meeting, March 2nd, 2015. Ms. Don, please continue.
Okay, so as we were just saying, these plans were not seen by the HPC, and you've said several times that you're planning to come back in front of the HPC?
No, I never said I was planning on coming back. I don't know what your procedure is going to be based on this. I think you want to mention once again?
I don't know what your procedures are. That's the problem we've been having. So I think in earlier hearings, we indicated that when the applicant had submitted or was planning on submitting site plan drawings, it was my understanding from your ordinance that the Historic Preservation Commission would then have an opportunity to look at the exterior concerns of the property to make sure it complies with any design elements that they have. My reading of your ordinance is you don't have it at this time, and you're basing all your comments on recommendations and reports from 2000, 2003, 2009. I don't know what has resulted in an ordinance.
I'm not talking about anything from 2000 or
Well,
2003.
I'm saying what I have available to me.
I'm just asking your architect, are you planning to come in front of the HPC again?
Well, he
with
just told
these?
you no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of the public for this witness?
I want to redirect to my witness.
Please.
Mr. Stevenson, based on your previous testimony concerning the proposed dwelling, do you believe that I shouldn't say, based on your testimony, is the site plan and the proposed subdivision as well as the proposed dwelling substantially satisfy the bulk requirements and the two variances we're seeking?
Yes, it does. Like the only variance on the application, and as shown on the surveyor's plan, is just the lot width, I believe, was the only issue we had with any of the bulk area requirement. So only for the fact that it is, a corner lot, it is a large lot. It can be, subdivided. The area is not less than what you require in your bulk area requirement for a lot area. It's just that the inconvenient spot of the property just makes you have those smaller lot width that don't comply.
Would these two variants being sought adversely affect the visual impact or environment?
My opinion, no.
I have no further questions.
Okay, any further questions from our experts, from any members of the planning board? Yes.
I just had your last question was there any impacts?
Any adverse impact on the visual environment or the visual impact on the proposed dwelling? I think that's a concern with regard to the negative and positive criteria. That's a concern under the MLUL. So I wanted to ask Mr. Stevenson the question: was there any negative or adverse impact on the visual? Did the two variants create any adverse impact?
Has there been any consideration, and I'm not even sure this is the right time to ask the question, but in terms of the site plan for remediating any type of additional stormwater that's going to be coming off the site?
Well, that would be, I would assume that's an engineering issue.
Yeah, I mean, that we will go into if there is requirement to have, a retention, basin on site. We would actually go through that calculation and would have that incorporate into the site design. But I haven't really gone through those calculations as of yet. I don't know if that's a requirement. I'm sure that would be a requirement when we go to submit the site plan for permits or for site to your engineering department. Then yes, I've done those before, and I don't think that would be a problem. We would actually have areas to have to retain. If we have to retain stormwater on site, fine. But it is a big property. We do have a lot of green area. I don't think it'll be an issue, but if it does come up, it can be handled.
And have you considered any way of replacing the wooded area that would have to be taken down to build the?
Well, when you say wooded area, the only area that on the site that's going to be in terms of trees, the trees that are along the front are going to remain, unless their roots seems to come further in here. We don't see that yet. They don't have that much of a coverage area, and of course there's the tree line, the little shrubberies going along South Orange Ave. The only section of that that's going to be taken off is just a portion of it, so you can at least see the front of the house and, of course, to enter into the driveway. Now, that, of course, if you feel that we need to replace that, there's nothing else on the property. There's a bunch of wooded areas, pretty much a bare lot with the exception of the trees you see rendered in the front and, of course, these shrubberies along the front, along
You've already
South
covered
Orange
that.
Ave, that we can
appreciate
put that.
You've already covered that. I guess
Okay,
I just want to make having just been in an accident on South Orange Avenue, the driveway does seem dangerous.
Yeah.
Regardless of your plan of them always coming out front, it seems like a very dangerous situation. And I know that you mentioned a fence or something potentially along the boundary, but there's not enough space right now between the curb and the property line to put a fence.
Well,
you have about 6 inches, unless you're saying
it's a foot there, but like I said, if we had to tweak the plan, we can do that. But you'll put a fence post, yes, if it's a fence that the owner's going to go with and it would meet your ordinance or when we get to, if the Historic Commission review it and they say, well, you know what, before you go forward, we would like for you to consider this, we can do that. But once again, with the driveway, and it's not like there's another house 100 feet away and they have a driveway, and then another one 50 feet away and they have a driveway.
I'm less concerned about.
I do understand. I agree. Yeah.
I'm less concerned about where other houses are and the
Right.
busyness of South Orange Avenue, and especially when there's snow and how much your curbs are now you're getting a foot and a half of curb of snow away from the curb. The pulling in and pulling out, and how much snow gets packed against your driveway. We all, we get our driveway shoveled, but over the winter it goes from 12 feet to now you have 6 feet, and so there's a lot of issues I just see that could come up that I'm just saying this for the record, even though we're not really, I don't know if this even matters at this point. It just makes this situation very dangerous.
Yeah. It's
for not just the resident, but also the other people. And I've just come out of I just was in an accident on South Orange Avenue. I'm a very cautious driver, and so it's like, it's just it should be a real concern about the design.
Yeah. I understand, but it is a very large property. If there's any case of shoveling snow, they may be afraid they got to shovel too much snow because they have all of this to put the snow up against, so there's no way that snow is going to pile up in front of their property. They have so much place to put it. And pretty much, like I said, if you just go down, another 240 feet to the next property, you have city driveways right, small homes. They don't even have, and I'm saying they're older homes, so nothing you can do about that, but they're like right up. Actually, when I went there the other day, even driving down South Orange tonight, I actually saw 2 cars back to back on the edge of their driveway, right on the edge of South Orange Ave. So, and they back out of that, but that's them. This property, is being developed, and in developing it, we can, and what we are doing is trying to correct, mistakes of other past development, other smaller homes, or other driveway, and that's what this allowed the applicant here to do with this design with the driveway. We've done as much as we can, and maybe even more can be done so that the cars never have to back out on the driveway. But of course we're looking at, well, it's a home. Eventually something will happen. You're going to have a party, and some car's going to back up. Well, once again, that's in any type of home. But there's enough being done here so that you don't have a car backing out onto South Orange Ave. And once again, it's a property that the owner is just trying to subdivide and develop, because it is a pretty large property, and what is she going to do with the rest of this? I don't know how she's maintaining it. She could probably testify more to that.
Any other questions? Any other questions from members of the audience? Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. Stevenson, for your testimony. Counsel?
Yes.
I have a question for you. You are planning to ask the owner to come testify. I just want to clarify, beyond that, do you have any plans to consider offering somebody with planning experience that's going to address the positive and negative criteria?
I've discussed it with my client, and we're looking into that. But at this time, we want to conclude her testimony. I don't know the board's process concerning that.
Well, once we conclude her testimony, if you have no other witnesses, unless you're telling us you plan to get other witnesses, we would move to public comment. But once we move to public comment, we're not going backwards.
I got you.
So this would be the
it.
time to decide whether or not you're going to do that. If you are, then we obviously are not finishing tonight. If you want to proceed with the owner and go forward from there, it's your case.
Okay.
It's her application.
All right. Let me just confer with her just for a moment.
Should take 3 seconds. Why are they if they conclude their testimony, we take the comments from the audience. Why aren't we going to vote?
You dropped that one more time, you're in trouble.
I'm trying to break it.
Adam? Alex, you want to deliver an address while you're here and you're on stage?
I don't know. Do you have an hour and a half? What? Right, but do you have that long? That's true.
Did they leave the room?
Okay, after conferring with my client, we're going to proceed with the planner. So we'll ask the commission to adjourn, I guess, to the next meeting or following meeting. And I'm going to withhold my client's testimony to that last meeting, or hearing, rather.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to close the hearing, or adjourn the hearing, more properly stated. And not adjourning the whole meeting, just this hearing. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 6, 2015 at 7:30. You expect to have the planner ready for that
I hope so,
meeting?
yes. If not, I will certainly advise Mr. Dwyer.
How far in advance, what kind of notice, if any, is required?
Not unless he's going to submit a report in writing. We'd like to have that at least 10 days in advance.
What does our next April agenda look like?
Jenna, do we have any cases currently for the board for the April meeting?
We actually just got an application in today for 7 Voles Avenue for a minor site plan.
Okay.
And
Is that's for completeness, correct? Okay.
And if the town board acts,
We could be back here talking again about PRCB district. Okay. Okay, so just for those of you who are here, again, this hearing is being adjourned for this evening. The applicant will be, at this moment, it appears the applicant will be back at our next regularly scheduled meeting, Monday, April 6, 2015, starting at 7:30. At that time, they'll be offering additional testimony, at a minimum from the owner and potentially also from a planner. And at that time, people will be able to ask questions of those witnesses, and then again be able, before we're done and before the hearing is closed, to offer their comments generally to the board. So I want to thank you for coming out this evening. The meeting still will go on, but this hearing is now adjourned.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. We'll give you a moment to remove your things from the stage, and we'll continue with the meeting.
You can take it. Yeah, yeah. Lloyd, they keep the exhibits. They do keep the exhibits.
Okay, so now we're going to move on. Report from the Board of Trustees members regarding the Planning and Zoning Committee. Mark, do you have anything to, or Alex, anything to offer?
Actually, the Planning and Zoning Committee got canceled last month, so there was no meeting.
Okay. A report from the board planner regarding the Irvington Avenue redevelopment study. Susan?
We're still discussing it.
Okay. Can I ask a question in all seriousness? You appear to be waiting upon certain information from the town, is that?
Yes.
And is there a problem of some sort? I mean, each of your reports are very short, like, I'm still waiting.
Yes.
Is there,
That's why they're short, because I don't have anything to report other than we haven't received all the substantial evidence that we need to complete the report and to come to our conclusion based upon the statute.
Just out of curiosity, from whom are you still awaiting information in particular?
Well, we're still looking for inspection reports on certain properties.
Okay.
Who is inspecting them?
Zoning officer,
Okay.
Okay.
construction code official, and zoning officer, not this construction code. Construction code.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
I misspoke.
Okay. And then finally, green building ordinance. The members of this board were provided prior to this meeting with an ordinance at the request of one of our members, and I would ask Neil, since you brought this up, if you might just say a few words about what we have in front of us tonight.
Yeah, I was asked by both the Environmental Commission and a couple of members of the Planning Board to draft a green building ordinance of some kind. And what I sent out was the result of that. The Environmental Commission reviewed it, and we discussed it at our last meeting. And then once that was, they said that let's go ahead and start letting other people look at it to get comments and to start the process. So I tried to put it in as best form as possible, and I mean that's kind of where it is. So getting responses and comments or questions.
Two things. One is it seemed like a fairly easy level to reach, for new developers. And I think that in the most case we try and strive for that already. But what I was also wondering about is for current existing buildings, to doing renovations, which didn't seem to touch on as much, and what different standards are available there that we may want to consider, or maybe as a separate ordinance. Have one for new developments, one for renovated developments. That's my only comments.
I can say that the guidelines that are in the ordinance, if it's within the square footage that is identified in the ordinance, and it's 50% or more of that square footage is part of the renovation, it would need to comply. I also, in that, I actually said any municipal building of any size that would be within, no small space, but would need to comply. So I was trying to, so that would be the answer. There is a LEED existing buildings rating system that then could also overlay any existing buildings that may not be going through major renovation but wants to change its operations to be more sustainable.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I make a suggestion? Because we're not going to be able to decide it tonight, that it be referred to the ordinance committee that we have set up to go through it and look at all the questions and concerns that it poses, and then come back to, and then work with our counsel, because there's a number of legal questions involved.
So that is one route. There is another route, if I may.
Sure.
That is that when normally ordinances don't come directly to the planning board, but first they go to the Planning and Zoning Committee for review. I would, if I were just to amend what you suggested slightly, before it comes to us, where our ordinance committee certainly should review it, I would recommend that it perhaps go to the Planning and Zoning Committee, and they would start that review, and their legal the board's legal counsel could look into that.
Yeah.
I'd actually put it on the agenda for the next one already.
Okay. I would also temper that. You can do it simultaneously, because the planning board members may have different questions than planning and zoning. So you can do it contemporaneously with it, just to save some time.
Yeah, I suppose we could do that.
I wasn't, when I asked it to be sent out to the planning board, it wasn't necessarily to, circumvent the existing process.
understand.
It was more that, just to let everybody see it, if there are any glaring issues, that we could address those, and that it could become part of a conversation where, and in terms of the planning and zoning, if you guys are meeting on it, if you would like me to attend and to be there for questions, feel free to invite me. I'll come and sit and talk to you guys about it as well.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a very important issue, and we appreciate, you're putting in the time and thinking about it. Seeing no further business before this board, I'm sorry?
One other question. We did receive our annual letter from the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and they've got a number of comments in there that are germane, and I just want to know, do we just ignore it like we did last year, or do we really respond to this?
I don't have a comment on that.
Okay, well, I think the board got a copy of it. Maybe perhaps,
The Planning and Zoning Committee met with him last year. He came, we discussed several of the issues. We have not done so for this year. But it's fine for the planning board to comment on it.
I mean, if planning and zoning wants to handle it, that's wonderful. I mean, they wrote it to us. I think it at least deserves some answer. Either, yes, we've referred it to the planning and zoning, or, we'll take a look at it.
Or maybe you have comments to make, you can send the comments on to me.
No, I really don't. I mean, but they raised some quite more ordinance questions.
I have a feeling they sent it to the planning board members more as a courtesy than expecting a response.
That's fine with me.
So consider it referred to the planning.
Consider it referred to planning and zoning.
Trustees. Okay? I'm sorry. Was there any?
Then we can ignore it.
Well, I'm not telling you to do that. Appreciate the work that Rusty and our colleagues on the board have done to this stuff. Anything else before I, okay, so do I need to call for a motion to adjourn? I never remember. So is there a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much. Good night.